It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And welcome to the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the last scoreboard show for a little while, as both Nice and Ponte Vedra lost, and we'll be talking about that. But before we get there, let me introduce him, the man, the myth, the legend, the hardest working sports reporter in Northeast Florida, and especially the 32081 area, Mr. Anthony Richards. Good evening, Anthony.
Hey, Todd. Yeah, glad to be back on and talk one more week of football. At least wrapping it up. Right?
It's kind of like bittersweet, isn't it? Because both teams had such a great season, and it comes to an end, and you're kind of hoping for the best, and we'll talk about that. But here's one thing. I got to know Coach Jim McCleod very well. He's over at Nice. He's one of the freshman coaches, and he helps out a little bit on varsity too. And I've gotten to know him real well. Great guy. But the other thing too I learned about him is that he's also he's one of the co-heads, I guess you should say, of the St. Johns County Cobra 7-on-7 program. And it's seen a lot of success over the years. So I said, hey, Coach, can you come on? Because, as football season's winding up, there are kids out there that are looking for a 7-on-7 team or something like that. And you got a great organization. What do you say about coming on, talking to us about tryouts and about the overall program? He said, Todd, sure, no problem. So I'd like to welcome Coach Jim McCleod from the St. Johns County Cobras to the show.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. I love what you guys do. Let me make sure that I say that.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Coach. And we appreciate all you do. And one thing I was hoping you could start off with, because we have all ages listening to the show. There's some of us that are very familiar with 7-on-7. And before we get into the Cobras, organization, I was wondering, could you just talk a little about what 7-on-7 is for some of these rising 7th and 8th graders and 9th graders that might not be familiar with the program and exactly what 7-on-7 is?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So basically 7-on-7 is for skill positions, right? Linebackers, corners, safeties on defense. And then on offense, it's wide receivers. We line up in a running back set, or we'll have a running back in the backfield, but it's for skill position players to get better, to hone their skills. We try to make sure that we have the best coaches available for these kids to hone their craft, to learn new things, to understand the game better. I think that's kind of a misnomer a little bit about 7-on-7 is that, you're just out there slinging the ball around. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of coaching that's done. There's a lot of development that can be had in 7-on-7 with the right coaches and being in the right program.
Well, I think you're right too. As you know, my son's a quarterback and he's done 7-on-7 in the past. And I think what people don't realize is that without having I'm just going to talk from a quarterback standpoint here, without having the rush, to your point, you can work on doing multiple reads and looking and seeing what's open versus having these big defensive linemen coming at you and having to rush or whatever. But it gives you kind of like that off-season kind of feel to where you can say, hey, I'm going to practice doing 2-3 different reads or different progressions in what I call a very fun type of format.
You're 100% correct. So what you'll hear out there is, the quarterbacks, that doesn't mimic, that's not real life when they got, somebody barreling down on them. You're right, it's not. But what it is doing, as you stated, is it's letting you start learning progressions and reads and, what defenses and coverages you're looking at, so there's a lot that you can get from it without having to hear about, there's nothing like the live game, which is something we all know. But with your son being a quarterback and you kind of being around it, there's a lot to gain from 7-on-7 if you're getting the right coaching and you're around the right people. And
you also get to know the other players around you because all these guys are friends. They might go to different schools. They come together. They play 7-on-7. They have a great time. And then, they meet up afterwards. And I know you know a lot of players, and we'll talk about that later. But it's just a fun time. And it's a really good experience, I think. But
it is.
It's great. But the experience now, I got to tell you, I've been watching the Cobras over the years, and what you've done with this organization is phenomenal. And I've been looking at some of the schedules. I've been talking to people. I mean, you're doing a regional and a national schedule and the success you guys have had at all age groups. And congratulations on that. But also, I know there's a lot of people that are interested in trying out because you had some programs a little bit later and you already had a tryout and stuff. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your program specifically. And also, I know you have a makeup tryout coming up soon as well.
Yeah, so I need to make sure that I give all the credit for this to Brian Hemingway. He is the owner. He brought me on 6 years ago when this started to kind of be his right-hand man and being, kind of in charge of player personnel and stuff like that. But but he has set the foundation for us, and he is our leader. And this would not be possible without Brian Hemingway. So we're very lucky, to have him. But to answer your question, so we started 6 years ago. So we started with 13 kids. I want to make sure that I get that. We started with 13 kids.
That's what you started with?
13 kids.
Wow.
We're up to 130 last year. So it's been growing and growing. So we just had our tryout last week. We had over 150 kids.
Wowzers.
And within probably 2 or 3 hours after our tryout was completed, between our Instagram and our Twitter and stuff, I think we had 19 or 20 kids, something like that, ask, about another tryout. So immediately we set up another tryout to try to suffice. And if there was anybody that missed it or they're interested, it gives them one more opportunity, to come out there. Todd, what was the rest of your question there? Did I?
No, you answered it. And the other part too that I want to talk about that your organization does a great job with the social media, because 7-on-7 is really big, especially as you get older, when some of the recruiters start to look and you start to get noticed. You all do a really good job of putting social media out there at all ages. I mean, what's the take on that? Because it seems like the kids are probably really loving it as well as the parents.
Oh, that's a great question. Great question. So our guy is Ted with Created Moments. That's our he handles all our media and stuff. As a matter of fact, he's doing a documentary on us starting this season. He's phenomenal.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
It's going to be great. It's just more. It's for everything we do is for the kids, so we have to keep evolving. And as you know, being a father, these kids, they need that marketing. You know what I mean? These kids, we've got to figure out creative, unique ways to get these kids' faces out there. Being kind of homegrown, even though, we're one of the, the top 8 teams in the country, we're still not like, some of these bigger names that are out there, So we're constantly finding ways to get these kids marketed and to get their faces out there. And then not to mention, they just love seeing themselves in a clip. You know what I mean? They see themselves in a couple highlight clips. They can post it to their Instagram, to their Twitter, whatever it may be. Not to mention it's great film, because a lot of the things we do is, we're filming whole games. So if any of these kids want some film or the couple plays they made, Ted makes sure they get it. Now they can put it out. And that's just something else they have in their portfolio, to be able to show these coaches.
And the other thing too, I want to point out here, we talk about the kids and it is all about the kids. However, there's also another aspect I want to bring out from a parent's point of view, and it's also from the parents. And what I mean by that is that some of my best memories were not just watching my son play and stuff, but also getting to meet parents that I probably wouldn't have met otherwise because, my son's friends maybe go to another school. Yeah, I knew them as friends, but getting to hang out with them, spend the weekend with them, go to a tournament with them. I mean, it's really cool because then once you get into the school season, all of a sudden you're playing against them, but you're saying, hey, I'll meet up with you at halftime, or let me say hello. And you end up quietly pulling for, I hope he does good, but I'm not going to announce it, that kind of thing. But isn't that true? I mean, it's a cool feeling for a parent. I know you as a coach, everybody, but it's got to be cool to see parents talking and families getting along. And I think it also makes the Friday Night Lights even more special from a community's perspective.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The first of all, the parents, they make everything. We couldn't do anything without the parents. But we do. We talk about it constantly about the memories. You know what I mean? Obviously, you play to win the game. Winning is paramount. That's why we do this, right? Because we want to win. But those kids, you're not going to remember some of those wins, but you're going to remember those memories at the hotels or going out to dinner. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The parents all coming together. I think we have kids from, I think it's 10, 11, 12 different schools, something like that. So the hustle and bustle of in-season tackle football, we don't all get to see each other.
Right, exactly.
But we'll meet up at a game, like you said, on Friday nights or what have you. And then when we get back together, it's like we didn't miss a beat. I think our return rate in the 6 years is a little over 90%. So you develop these long-standing relationships, and it's just great. It's great for the community. It's great for the kids. Creating moments and memories that can last a lifetime, hopefully, is what it's all about. And I love to win. So if winning comes along with it, that's great. But as long as we're having a positive impact on everybody, that's the best thing to me.
That's awesome. And Coach, if people want to get more information on the Cobras, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say you can go to our Instagram, St. John's Cobra 7v7. You go to our Twitter, St. John's Cobra 7v7. We also have a website at St. John's Cobra 7v7. You can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, Coach Jim McCleod 4, Brian Hemingway on Instagram or Twitter. It's just at Brian Hemingway. I usually answer 99% of any messages I get, but we're very easy to get a hold of. I also, while I'm on here, I want to make sure to note that our whole staff and our whole, the coaches that we have over 20 coaches strictly to make sure that our kids are getting all the attention they have at every level from 8U to 18U. I have at least 4 coaches on every single team. I hired a wide receiver coach in Dwayne Marshall and also a defensive guy in Ronnie Mason to make sure that these kids are getting in just that little bit of extra work every time we get out there. So I want to make sure that, the staff knows how much we appreciate them and how important they are to everything we do.
I didn't know that you added Coach Ronnie Mason. He's awesome.
Yeah, so he's been with us since day one.
Has he? I didn't know that.
He's at TSD Athletes.
Yeah,
he's been with us since day one. He is fantastic. We brought on Dwayne Marshall this season. He's one of the best wide receiver coaches I've been around. Just a great guy to be around. He's a wonderful Christian man. He had somehow, because it's a small world, he was already working with, 10 or 12 of my athletes already. And we got to talking. And so it's just been great, but it's just another thing that we've added to the program to try to benefit these kids and help them out the best we can.
And I can't stress as much as a parent of a skilled position athlete that when your receiver, your defensive back, your quarterback, linebacker, whatever, go out there, they are going to work with some of the best. Like I said, I'm very familiar with Coach Mason. My son's worked out with him. He's fantastic. But you get that one-on-one type of coaching.
Correct.
And then you get that game experience in a way to be able to just kind of work on your craft. It's a great experience, I think, for kids.
Absolutely.
Well, Coach, I've had a real pleasure getting to know you, especially over the last year. I can't say thank you enough for all you do for these kids and the St. Johns County Cobras. What a great organization. I wish you the best in your regional and national schedule. It's fantastic. We'll be following you. And I'm going to tell everyone all those social media stuff we'll post on this through our X account as well as on the show. But I got to tell you, even if you don't have a kid that's going to be playing on 7-7, you got to follow them because they've got some of the best content out there. And you never know when you're going to go, hey, I know that kid. Hey, that kid's a neighbor of mine, So it's
yes, sir. You're
fantastic.
Absolutely correct, man. Yeah. Thank you very much for everything you do. Also, one last thing, man.
Sure.
Coach Colin Drafts and the Nice Panthers. What he does with that program is absolutely phenomenal. Him and
what
Coach
a run!
Garth
What a great
have
run.
us rolling. What a run, man! Drafts is one of the best guys I've ever been around. The way he runs that program and the culture he's created, him and Coach Garth over there, it's I'm so lucky to be a part of that, man. So I wanted to make sure we give those kids a shout out because they had a heck of a run this year, man.
They did. It was great, and thank you for all you do over there because I know you're especially involved with Tony Hodge, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
With the green team,
my guy.
So awesome, Coach. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us, and we wish you the best. And everyone, please be sure to check them out if you have a student athlete that is interested in joining the Cobras. I'm going to tell you it's one of the best in the area, if not the best. So be sure to check it out, and I'm sure they will have a great time. So thank you again, Coach.
Thank you, sir. You guys are awesome. Keep working hard.
So, Anthony, the good news is football's not stopping for some kids. They got 7-on-7. So
it's an ongoing thing, all the time for guys like that.
Yeah, and like I kind of mentioned, I mean, if you get a chance to go out and watch these kids play 7-on-7, it's fun. It's totally different than football. It's the kids are out there balling out. You're watching the special positioning, kind of like what Coach McCleod was saying. So go out and enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and if your kids play, you're going to have a lot of fun. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty. I guess we'll start with Ponte Vedra's lost to Niceville. This is the first year I think I've been wrong. No. I've been wrong once before, I think. Twice, maybe. But this one, I definitely thought they were going to pull out a victory. I thought they were going to win by 13-14. I even got trolled on Twitter about it. But But they looked like they were going to pull it out, Anthony. They really did. And, for all intents and purposes, you look at the stat sheet, and it really was not bad. I mean, even Brian had 97 yards rushing. Drew had 192, 12 of 23, and 2 touchdowns, and Brian tacked on one also with his rushing. And, it just seemed like Niceville did what Niceville does. They catch up at the end of the game, went into overtime, and they pull out a win by 1.
Yeah, it's Ponte Vedra, they fought just like they did in every game. Got the lead early, showed that they weren't intimidated by going on the road or the long road trip or whatever. Was talked about. We've talked about beforehand. They didn't let it phase them. They were they were in that game throughout. They had just as much chance to win, and it just didn't work out in the end. When you go to overtime, it's it's one of those things. You go to overtime and anything can happen type of scenarios. What could have been, but they had a great season, great game, and they showed up and they played Sharks ball like we've been accustomed them playing all year, which is tough, gritty, but also skillful and all the combinations you want to talk about.
And looking at what they've done this year, and I was looking at, because I'm sure you and I will talk about in the spring more once we know what's going on, but it's a great season for them to build on. Heck, this team, they end up going into the playoffs, and they end up finishing up their season 9-3. And like I said, it started off with a loss to Nice, a big rivalry game, and they didn't get their heads down. They battled back. And the other thing, too, is the defense played phenomenal. I kind of had to check the tackles twice because I couldn't believe it, but did you know that Talon Babin had 12 tackles in that game? I mean, he was just lights out against Niceville. So with that said, I mean, what do you have to say? Because I personally think it was a great season. When you look at the games, even they lost. I mean, Fleming Island in overtime. I mean, and then Nice, they played competitively, but that was the first game of the season. There's a lot for this Sharks team to be proud of, and a lot for them to build on going into next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to have a team with the mentality like that can mentally just not check out and bounce back from adversity, and they did that time and time again. That's something that you don't really necessarily losing a class, because they had so many underclassmen that were part of the team, and so that's something that the coaching staff can continue to build on. That mentality is already in place, and a lot of the guys have gotten a lot of playing time this year. They've had a lot of juniors and even sophomores that have really contributed, and especially like in the receiving core and on defense. Like everywhere you look, there's some juniors that have been playing, and those guys are now going to step up into even bigger roles. Talon is one of them. He's a junior, so he'll be a senior next year and still be a leader on the defense.
Exactly. So if we leave that game and now we come over to Nice and we look at their game against Oakleaf, the first thing I want to say in this is that Oakleaf won the game. The refs did not win the game. I know there's been a lot of talk about it. I want to address that, and these are my own opinions, not those of the crew of the 32081 or Anthony's. But I'm going to say this. Fascia does have to do a better job of ensuring that the officials that are doing the game, even to the clock operator, know what they're doing. Because I will tell you that I went back and looked at a number of the penalties that were called on Nice and the no calls on Oakleaf. And there was like a hands to the face against Maddox where it was clear. The umpire was only, a foot away from Maddox, and the hand was on his chest. And then there was a no call for a pass interference against Maddox, but then they turned around and they called a pass interference that was way less on Cash Caldwell. And I could go on here. But the biggest thing that really drove me nuts was there was a turnover, and the official threw his beanbag, and they went in to see who had possession. The clock operator did not stop the clock in 2 points. One, the white hat did not signal, which he should have, because they were trying to determine under the pile who had possession of the ball. So the clock operator didn't stop it. But then once the white hat did cut the clock, which I didn't understand why he did, because they did it after they determined who had possession, which they said it was still Oakleaf. The clock operator still didn't, clock it. So going back to what Mike Licio said in our last show, I'm just saying this. Fascia, you got to figure out a way to get officials that can officiate these games, because once you get in the playoffs, there's no messing around. I'm not saying there is any during the regular season, but come on, get some clock operators that know what they're doing. That's just what I'm saying. So Anthony, I'm not going to ask you, because I know you're a Ponte Vedra recorder. I don't want you to be in a bad position, but that's my take on it. I just think it was, I just, like I said, I don't think it was one-sided, but I think they just did a bad job, and I think it ended up on Nice's side. But again, I don't think it caused Nice to lose the game. But I think Oakleaf went out there with the attitude of, we're going to see how much we can get away with, and until they call it, we're going to do it, which I think is a great game plan personally, because it worked for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it definitely, you could see it's kind of the inconsistencies that I think even the FHSAA would tell you you want to be consistent. If you're, consistently one way or the other, you don't want to have a good drive and then kind of have a drive where you're inconsistent. It was kind of, it was going both ways at times. There was times where, you thought the ref was you thought he's reaching for his flag and he kind of sees the pass interference call, but then he decides to signal incomplete. I think maybe the refs were even kind of not sure at times. And that's one thing you just gotta, if you're going to call it, just call it, and then we'll go from there, So just the consistency, I think, is what everyone wants to see,
There was actually one, I think, where you were standing down at the end zone with me and there was a pass from Nate Harry to Vernon Stevens. And I'm watching Nate, and Nate scrambles out, and as he releases the ball, I hear a hit behind me. So I figured it was just checking or something going on, right? I follow the ball, and Vernon Stevens is on the ground looking up at me like, what just happened? And the guy was on top of him, but yet no flag. And I'm kind of, to your point, I'm like, come on, be consistent here. Let's get real here. But enough about that. Again, Oakleaf came in. They won the game. When you look at the total yards, they had 405 yards to 299 yards of Nice. As far as Maddox Spencer had a great night. He had a 9 for 148 yards. I think that might be his best game. I might be wrong there, but that was a fantastic night for him. And he averaged 16.4 and a touchdown. Nate Harry was 10 of 22 for 135. And this is the big number. Their defense, especially their defensive line, was able to hold KJ to 48 yards on 16 rushes. And we haven't seen that all season, Anthony.
Yeah, their defensive line really held up, and it looked like at times maybe there was a little bit of a hole there, but then it closed up quickly, and and KJ wasn't able to just hit it, and I know it's probably frustrating for him and the O line because all year they've been opening up and maintaining those holes, and they were just seemed to be like they were just missing it, or else he'd maybe get tripped up right in the hole, or it would just be so close to breaking so many runs it seemed like, and they just never were able to really do it. Except for a couple times, and it seemed like those big gashes in the running game would have opened up the passing game even more. We already talked about the passing stats, so they were still pretty effective. So it's just not having that normal running game that they're used to, that success on the ground, really kind of created an issue for the offense in the long run.
Yeah, it really was, and when you look at the defensive stats, also it's kind of like on Ponte Vedra's side. The defense did what they had to do. I mean, I was kind of impressed the fact that they ended up with 7 tackles for a loss, and especially against that big offensive line, they had 2 sacks for a combined 21 yards. And then Eli and Cash, they played great on the corners. They both had some pass defenses that were just fantastic. I mean, acrobatics is probably an understatement there. But again, Anthony, here's the thing. As we come to wrapping all this up, here's the one thing that I took away from the season. I want to get your opinion on it. Is this was a great season for both teams in totally different road paths, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, like I said, Nice had the regular season, undefeated regular season. Ponte Vedra was kept battling back from the loss to Nice and the loss to Fleming Island. And they ended up, too deep in the playoffs. And I walk away from the season, and I know everyone's disappointed. Wish we could have gone farther. We wish we could have made it one more round or 2 more rounds or to the state championship. I get it. But man, when you look at the roster and you look at some of these juniors and sophomores they have coming back on both squads and what they did this year, there's just something really good brewing in St. Johns County with the type of football. And I think Ponte Vedra and I think Nice are going to be back very strong next year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, St. Johns County in general really had a standout year. There were so many teams that either surprised or they were all seemed to have like winning records throughout most of the year. They were all in the hunt for the playoffs, and but it seems like definitely Nice and Ponte Vedra were kind of towards the front and kind of the tip of the spear in the county this year. And I see that definitely continuing next year. The northern part of the county they'll definitely hold their own again next year, and the rest of the county will be kind of looking to see what the those teams, Nice and Ponte Vedra especially, are doing, and they'll definitely next year have a target on their back. But that's kind of what you want, right? In sports, you want
exactly
to have enough success to where you want to be the one they're chasing. You want to be the one they're looking up to, and that means you had a successful year. Now you just have to maintain it, which sometimes is tougher, but I'm sure these guys are up to it.
And that it's funny you say that because I think Nice thrived off that this year. I think they thrived off having the target on their back. And I think in the same case, I think Ponte Vedra's reaction was different in the fact that, like, for example, when, like we mentioned it before going to this game, they played Beachside, they won, But when we talked to the players, they're saying, hey, we could play better. And then when they lost to Fleming Island, they were saying, we can't wait to play them again because we want to beat them. So I think the focus of both teams was phenomenal. I think the coaching staffs both did a great job. And I'm looking for great things next year for sure. I think both programs are poised to have very good 2025 football season.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun for sure. And just like I know the coaches told the players, this year, the seniors obviously it never feels good to lose, even if you make it to the state title game and you lose in the state title game. People are saying, oh, good run, congratulations. It's going to take, weeks or months for it to kind of sink in, and then you can look back on it and be proud of the season you had, but it's tough in the moment, and I know that. And everyone, only one team at the end of the year, gets to be happy and say they're the champs. So it's tough, and it's almost like it's coming eventually, but it never feels good. But yeah, what a memorable season and what a run, and I'm just glad that I was able to, we were able to cover it and be a part of it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and also I think the one thing, and I think you would agree with this, is I want to thank all the parents and players, because that's really what makes the show possible for us. And you and I were talking this year, we've been doing this show, we've been trying to get off, and this year was really cool. We had parents stopping us, we had players stopping and talking to us. We had like Finn Day say, hey, pronounce my name right. So we had him, right? But then, we got, talking to Drew and Brian and Joe and Noah and Jacob. It just goes on. And we really, parents stopping us and talking to us about how they enjoy the show. That's what, makes it all for us. And that goes out to all sports also. So while we might not have a weekly show, Anthony, I know we haven't talked about this, so I'm catching you off guard. But maybe what we can do is maybe get together on a monthly basis and touch base on what's happening with all the other sports going on, such as wrestling. I know I've had some interest from the wrestling people, basketball, soccer, and kind of touch base on that, because I know, for example, like you have a great article coming out on in the Ponte Vedra Recorder concerning, the cross country state championships.
Yeah. Ponte Vedra, girls won state for the second time in 4 years, and then the boys finished their highest finish ever at states, third with a third. So, kind of an in-depth article talking about that and kind of the, who the leaders were on the team, and just kind of how cool that is, to be that successful as a program, both girls and boys at the state level.
And they can catch that over there at PonteVedraRecorder.com. And they can find all your articles right there under sports. Fantastic. So maybe we can talk about that, Anthony, off the record, maybe off the show, not off the record. Everything's on the record. But anyways, we can talk about maybe doing some catch-ups between now and spring football when we gear this up to see how the team and the rosters are doing and stuff like that. And as always, if anyone has any show ideas for the future, please let us know. You can check us out on Facebook and get to us through there. Anthony, any last closing thoughts before we close out the show?
No, I mean, I guess just, thanks to all the seniors, for putting on a good show, and they weren't just great players, but there were so many seniors on both Nice and Ponte Vedra that were just just great guys. They were great representations. We talked about Brian Case. Shamar McNair for Nice. Like, those are just guys that they embrace their role as leaders, and like they are who you want to represent your school. And it was just great covering them, and look forward to continuing to cover the juniors as they move up to being seniors next year, and then get to know all the new guys coming in. So, it's all, the fun stories behind the scenes are the best part of the job.
And a big shout out also, obviously, to Coach Colin Drass and his entire coaching staff at Nice, as well as Coach Steve Price and his coaching staff. They've been wonderful, giving us interviews, enjoying the show. And I cannot end the show without a special thanks to Miss Janine Rosati over at Ponte Vedra Athletic Department. She's been fantastic giving us information about sports, as well as Miss Heather Davis over at Nice. They've really been providing us with the information we need to make the show possible and get all the information out for all of our student athletes. So thank you very much. And also be sure to catch Anthony Richards over on X. That's at ANTNY Rich. That's at ANTNY Rich. Also be sure to check out all of his articles, like I said, over on PonteVedraRecorder.com. Once again, for Anthony Richards, I'm the Todd. Thank you so much for joining us on this season's episodes of the 32081 Scoreboard Show.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.